Is it possible that a TV presenter can humiliate a professor? Well, it's true. Tucker Carlson destroys a stupid professor on live TV. Let's see how it went down.
The writer, who's a law professor in New York called Echo Yonka, asked a simple question: can my children be friends with white people? He really asked it, and he wasn't optimistic. Quote, "I will teach my boys the lesson generations old," he wrote. "I will teach them to be cautious. I will teach them suspicion. I will teach them distrust. I will teach my boys to have profound doubts that friendship with white people is possible." Well, those doubts mirrored the writer's own. As he put it, quote, "History has provided little reason for people of color to trust white people." That piece was one of the most popular on the New York Times website, even today. It was hardly unusual, though. Go to any liberal website, Salon, Slate, Vox, HuffPo, and you'll find similar pieces arguing that an entire racial group is untrustworthy and dangerous. This is a big change for the left. For most of the 20th century, liberals, and it was noble, argued that it was immoral to reward or punish people based on their skin color. Individuals ought to be judged solely by the choices they make. Anything less is bigotry. Liberals don't say that anymore.
Oh my God. What the hell is this? You know, sometimes I think the world's gone mad. Why do we still judge people by the color of their skin? Aren't we all the same? I know there are bad people, and I know that you can't tell the difference between good and bad by their skin color, nationality, faith, or background. That's the whole point.
So what struck me about this piece, a couple of different things, but the first thing was the generalizations about a racial group based on their race. And I grew up, I'm probably not so much older than you, in a world where overt expressions of that were not acceptable. You weren't allowed to generalize on the basis of race because the assumption was each person is an individual and you judge each person by the choices he or she makes. I don't understand when it became okay to generalize about racial groups.
Despite all efforts, desegregation in the United States has been slow. Protests with mass pogroms in 2020 have exacerbated the situation, making many white citizens of the United States more convinced that they do not want to work with African Americans, live in the same neighborhood, or send their children to common schools. It's horrible.
Well, I mean, it's to me, a strange way to put the question. I mean, while it's the case that we all hope that we can be judged for who we are, I think while some people have the luxury to be raised only being told to look at individual people, it should be no surprise to you that black people, in particular black men, have been taught forever that they have to be careful how they behave around white people, that the way they behave will be interpreted differently, that when they misbehave, it'll be punished differently, that if they laugh too loud, if they walk into a nice store. So with all due respect, Tucker, what was true for you has never been true for lots of people.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of ways to respond to that. One, on a factual basis. In truth, in a lot of places in this country, the main threat that African Americans face is not from white people, as you perfectly well know. But beyond that, the idea that you could understand a person's motive merely by knowing his race dehumanizes that person. It's the definition of racism, and you're engaging in it.
The truth is really deplorable. Tucker tells the facts. Advocates of tolerance say that black people are oppressed in America and police officers commit daily atrocities out of chauvinistic motives, and that African Americans themselves are innocent. Is this true? Here is a graph showing the number of murders per 100,000 population committed by different racial groups in the U.S. In the graph, the top line is the number of murders committed by blacks. The second line from the top is the number of murders committed by Latinos. The third line is the average number of murders in the U.S. per 100,000 residents. The fourth line is the number of murders committed by other racial groups. The fifth line is the number of murders committed by whites. It's up to each of us to draw our own conclusions.
So I first want to respond to the first comment. I think is ought not be let lie. While it's true that, of course, people of color face threats from other people of color, it's also true that white people face the overwhelming threat from white people. That is,
right.
People face threats from who they live beside. So
That's
I
right.
find
exactly.
But I think it's fair to point out that we oughtn't be too distasteful and say things like, well, the great threat. It does feed a certain uglier narrative that we don't want. But to your core point
Wait, hold on. Why does the truth ever feed a, quote, ugly narrative? The truth is worth telling for its own sake because it's true.
You're welcome to tell the truth, but it is deeply suspicious that people are so quick to say things like the main threat facing African Americans is other African Americans, but you never hear anybody say the main threat facing white people is white people, right? So there is no phrase white on white crime.
I don't know. I mean, people say that. I mean, I guess the point is,
Tucker,
you don't face a threat from an entire racial group. You face a threat from individuals who've made individual choices.
Well,
That's the problem. The professor was stupid. Why did he decide to draw conclusions about the masses based on the opinions of a couple of people? It's incomprehensible to me. He's shown himself to be a stupid man who's just stirring up hatred. Frankly, I don't support that. What do you have to say about that? Write your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to watch other shocking news on the channel.